Hey there. Welcome to Her Truth Revealed, unraveling our midlife era. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. This space is for the woman who's done pretending, done hiding, and ready to step fully into her truth. Midlife isn't about fading into the background. It's a time where resilience lights the way and authenticity becomes the loudest voice in the room. In this season of our lives, we are more than just survivors. We are creators, revolutionaries, and unapologetic women rewriting the rules. I've been through my battles, rebuilding from loss, betrayal, and heartache. But here's the truth. Every challenge, every tear, and every setback has led me to this moment of profound transformation. Together, we're going to dive into raw, real conversations that shatter stereotypes, tackle the tough stuff, and embrace the powerful magic that is midlife. So, if you're ready to live this chapter with boldness and joy, hit subscribe. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it and leave a review so we can keep this revolution going. Ladies, no more masks, no more apologies, just the truth of who we are. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to an exciting new episode of Her Truth Revealed. I'm calling it our girlfriend Sesh. And the reason is because I'm bringing to the table friends that I've had for eons and walking through this midlife messy together, right? Because the thing is, we're not in it alone. But do we really talk to our friends about it? We do. We get into some deep conversations. So I want to introduce you my friend, one of my very best friends, Lisa. We've known each other. Let me see. I was pregnant with my third child, so I was in late 20s and you were in your early 20s. I think you had just turned 21. And we were still in our club phase. And I know that's funny, but really, how many women do you all know, midlife women, that you were friends with when you were looking for outfits to wear to Vegas that you would never wear in your everyday normal life or going out in the town you live in? So I wanted to bring her on today because I think it's really important to walk through this journey. So now she's in her 50s and I'm in my 50s, completely different lives. I have grown children. She has preteens and elementary school kids. So there's just so much that we are sharing together. And so we're going to be unfiltered and unafraid to talk about our journey in midlife. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Super excited.
Oh my gosh. So here's my first question to you. If
Okay.
your midlife was a theme song, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Like, you know what? Right now, because it's Christmas time, like literally, I've been playing Christmas music since the beginning of November, so I can't think of any songs right now off the top of my head. It's terrible. I love with music too. God, no, you should have picked me for this.
I know. Well, I didn't because I feel like there's so many things. Okay, so let me start here. In your, a lot of us don't even realize we're walking into midlife, right? Like,
Yeah,
doesn't it feel like it was just yesterday we were 25 years old?
yeah, for sure,
Like,
for sure.
what?
Yeah, that just I don't feel like right now I don't feel like I'm in my midlife, but then there's moments where I'm like, yeah, we're here. We're here, you know.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
what's one of the most significant things that's happened to you in the last few years that really was like, hey, life's changing? Because that's sort of when we see a lot of these markers, right? Of like when we're
yeah.
leaving our teens and we celebrate the dirty things and then we get into our 40s. But then there's this like real shift, like at the core of your life. What was something that happened in your life that really sort of was the entry point into, hey, sister, shit's about to go down?
Yeah, so I think for me, like my divorce was a big catalyst, especially it coming during this midlife period of my life. And so I think when I initially was going through it is when I was turning 40. And so I was like, oh, yay, I was welcoming 40 and I was really excited. 40 seemed great. And I think now that I'm hitting mid-40s, it's like, oh, this is real. This is a lot different. It's a lot different, and the energy I had just 5 years ago is not as high. And I have three boys, like we just spoke about, and their energy is super high. And so trying to keep up with them, that's another thing that just made me realize like life is really changing, but for me, but life doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So
Right.
my divorce for sure was a big catalyst for me, but in a really good way. And I think a lot
Mhm.
of people speak about divorce and like put such this tragic thing. And at first I thought it was going to be, but really it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like
Well, I
it,
mean, they
yeah,
do have divorce parties now, right?
yeah.
But like nobody goes into marriage thinking that they were gonna get a divorce. And let me just share a little something I know about my beautiful friend here. She's one of the only people I know that literally had a notebook since she was a child of her fairy tale wedding. Like all of the dresses, the bridesmaids' dresses, what her flowers got. I remember just being in awe going, wait, you have a notebook full of information that you've collected over the years for your wedding. And although right now you're saying like it was probably the best thing, right? Here's this woman who had a real clear view of what marriage would be and what a wedding would look like and motherhood. And then you're kind of like, best thing ever, divorce. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that
Well,
like for you?
so you said something, you said like had the idea of like what a marriage would be. I'll rewind that. So I had the idea of what a wedding would look like, what I wanted the wedding to look like. I had an idea of what I wanted my motherhood to look like. Marriage is a very different thing. We get told these stories, this happily ever after you get married, and everything's great. Everything's all solved after you get married. It's perfect. No, after you get married, it's harder. And I think the reality of that like really comes to light and who you really truly are comes to light. And so the marriage piece of it, I went in very naively, I guess, even though I was in a relationship with my ex for a number of years before we actually got married. The actual marriage itself didn't have a good foundation. And being raised by a single mom, I think, for me, the parenting aspect, I knew what kind of parent I wanted to be, and that was very clear to me versus I didn't know what kind of wife I wanted to be or needed to be, or not necessarily needed to be, I guess what kind of partner I needed and
Right.
needed to support me and in my growth. It's great. We had this journey. We have these three beautiful children. I love them to death. I wouldn't change any aspect of it. But where I am now today, I would never go back.
Right. Yeah. That's probably why women have celebrations, right? Because
Hmm.
we go into marriage with sort of a false identity, I guess, of what we think it is and who we think we are. Right. So
Right.
now that in hindsight, you look back and you go, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. What's the one thing about your journey that would shock your younger self?
I think the thing that would shock my younger self is that I am a mom of three.
Was that not a
Uh,
thing that you thought
I
about when you were
thought
young?
I thought I would have one child, maybe two, but definitely not three. And then also, I think I would shock myself in all the things that I do now, in all the ways that how involved I am with every aspect of my kids' lives. And not in a way where I'm like doing everything for them, but I'm involved in the schools and I'm involved in their sports programs, which has allowed me to also start advocating for not only my children, but for other children. And so I think that would be a big shock for my younger self because my younger self really didn't know what I wanted to be. I was a daughter of an immigrant parent. And so literally it was you go to school and you graduate, but there was nothing else as to like, what does that mean to go to school? What does that mean to graduate? What do I do with that? So I went to school and I graduated, and it was like, well, now what? What do I do?
Right.
What does that mean? It was like, graduate, get a job. Okay, well, I got a job and I hate this job. I'm miserable. And it took me like it took me a while and I couldn't find what I liked. And then when I stepped into motherhood, I was like, I love this. I love, being there with my kids. And then it was like doing activities and I was homeschooling and I was advocating for them in homeschooling worlds and, you know, all of those things. And really what I've come to realize is that I love the piece where I can fight for people that don't necessarily have the strength or the voice or the knowledge to fight for themselves.
Yeah. And do you feel like, I mean, maybe this is not the right question, but I'm with you on that, where you just evolve so much that you find sort of that thing you've always had, but didn't know where to place it, right? And now
Yeah.
you do know where to put it. Tell us about what happened like after divorce. So you were younger in your life when you got married. You were together for what, 20 years or so?
Yeah, almost 20 years in
Almost
total. We
20
were almost
years.
20 years.
Um, so then you were an at-home wife, homeschooling wife, then you get a divorce, and then now it's like, now what? So what were
Yeah.
some of the things that went through your mind right after that you knew were going to change? That's like, oh gosh, how do I
Um,
deal with this?
so I had always really been a single mom, like from the moment my oldest was born. I did not have the support on a regular basis, except for the financial piece of it. So their dad took care, he was at work, he would pay the bills per se. And so for me, going through divorce, I was like, oh my gosh, now I have to do all of this. Like I have to figure out how can I work? How can I, continue to educate my children, provide, make sure that we keep a roof over our head, food on the table, that kind of stuff. And so that part of it was a real stress for me at first. Like I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Like, when I was married, we were always financially struggling, which I never understood why, because again, I didn't have control of the finances. And then, I started being financially independent. Granted, I still get like child support. It's not like a whole lot where you're like, oh yeah, like can live off that. Definitely still need to like work. And I realized I was like, oh, when I'm in control of this, things are getting paid and things are getting taken care of. And so it made it so that I could see what it is that I actually needed to make in order to maintain a comfortable lifestyle for my family. But that was a big like worry and stress as to how am I going to balance this? And at first I was trying to still homeschool them and work, and that was not great. And so I ended up making the hard decision for all of us to enroll them into schools. And at first, my older two, were really devastated because, they had only known homeschool life. And my youngest, he would be entering kindergarten, and he was like thrilled because he didn't know any different. And it actually ended up being like the best thing ever. And I think that's a big takeaway from my divorce, is that I have to let go of what I thought was going to be and allow what is to be. Does that make sense?
I love how you say that, because I think, when people homeschooling in the last 10 years have been such a really big, well, I'd say 20 or so, has been a really big push out there in the parenting world, and how you transition, and how, like, you were in a position where it wasn't like choosing for your comfort. You were in a position based on circumstance. So absolutely, there's got to be some turmoil in there. Okay, I'm going to ask the big question, because I think like so many moms feel this and think this. Have you ever experienced a moment where you were like, oh my God, I suck?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a silly question to ask, but
Yeah,
really,
like
like,
1,000 times a day. Like I think if I don't know if you've heard me say this, but I've always said this. Like raising assholes is super easy because you don't have to do anything. You literally don't have to do anything. But if you want to raise productive, responsible human beings, it's work. And when you work, you constantly feel like you're not doing enough. You constantly feel like you're a failure. You constantly feel like, oh my gosh, I've ruined my children. The more things I read about, my childhood traumas and how I do stuff now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm messing up my kids. And I think because I feel like that, I'm not messing them up. like, because I do care and I do want the best for them, and they need to have those moments, but we also have reconciliation moments. Like my kids and I, every evening, we do a reconciliation at the end of the day before they go to bed. We talk about, we call it the thorn and rose. So I say, speak to me about your thorn, which is your worst part of your day. And then tell me your rose, which was the best part of your day. And we go around and we all share. And then we say a mantra at the end of the day all together, and we do this. And my kids look forward to that. Like if I'm super tired and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and we're late and we're coming home from practice and it's just crazy. And I'm just like, you guys got to get to bed. They're like, mom, we got to do our thorn and rose. And I'm like, so they remind me, and we keep each other in checks and balances. And so then when I have those moments, I'm like, I'm not failing them, even though I mean, you're always gonna, like a mom, you're always gonna feel like that, unless you're raising assholes, and you don't care.
Well, at that point, are you even really aware, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's not a thing. So, I mean, I know that we all think that as moms, there's been, even with grown children, still sometimes I think, oh gosh, no way I did that. If my son is feeling some kind of way that's negative, or my daughters or anything. But then, so this thorn and rose, which is great for our kids, right? We all parents, all mothers have something where they're helping their children go through emotional process. But what about us? So now let me ask you how you deal with your own when they're asleep and you're alone with your thoughts and all the stuff. Do you do that too? Or are you kind of like, I don't even have the energy?
Usually, like, I'm usually pretty very, like, open and honest, like age appropriate honesty with my children. And so when I remember, I think it was like 2 months ago or something, because I had messaged you and Maria, and I was like, oh my gosh, everybody hates me. Like I was spiraling, right? Like my hormones were going crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, my kids hate me. Like I'm messing up everything. And I shared that with my kids. And their response was, oh, we couldn't hate you. We might not like that you don't let us do stuff sometimes, but we would never hate you. But I think a lot of the times when I'm really spiraling, I lean into my friendships, like my trusted friendships. And I think that's the other thing about stepping into like this midlife piece is who
Yeah,
your true ride or dies are, right? Like
right.
I don't have a very big circle. I have a lot of people. I know a lot of people. I network and I talk to a lot of people, but the people that I'm like legitimately close to know these deep places within me. And so I can feel comfortable sharing like, hey, I'm feeling like this. I luckily like I have people like you who have been through this, that have older children. So you're like, oh yeah, I remember this feeling. It's okay, it's normal. And then, the other pieces is like I'll journal,
Mhm.
when I can. A lot of times, like in the evenings, I'm so exhausted, right? 'Cause there's like go, go, go. So when I can journal, I do journal, but I do have a lot of self-reflection, and I do notice when my hormones are going crazy because then definitely have one.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting because recently I've been hearing a lot of this, which I've also experienced. It's called a sister wound. So it's been a real dialogue out in the world, women in midlife talking about healing their sister wound. So I've experienced women's betrayal towards me. And when you say, when you're going through the spiral, when you're really going deep, you're losing it. You're like, oh
Yeah,
gosh, I'm the worst person. And you have to
yeah.
find people that is safe for you, that you can trust with your emotions. What would you say for women who have a plethora of friends, right? They just have all kinds of friends. How do you know? How do you know? Is it about time frame? Like is it because we've known each other for so long, or is it because we've been vulnerable? Share with us a little bit of how you established this sisterhood where when you really are feeling like divorce is a big thing. And there's
Yeah.
like almost 20 years of emotional things wrapped around that, and you don't just go to your therapist, you go to your friends. How do you know? How did you cultivate that? That's a better question.
Yeah, I think, especially in adulthood, right? You can have friendships that you've just made and you can connect with these people. I think when a person is like emotionally intelligent, is willing to be open, honest, vulnerable, empathetic, it definitely makes you create a safer space. You know, like you, I've had betrayals, and I have a very trusting, naturally trusting personality. Like I have a naturally trusting personality, and then I have a very naturally like not trusting personality. Like I'm like literally the Aquarius. Like either I trust you or I don't trust you, and there's no like
In
in
between.
between for me. I think for everybody it's kind of different. I've been so blessed to have the friendships that I have that have lasted as long as they have, because I think we have wanted to grow together in our lives. Like we don't stay stuck in a
Okay.
place where I think sometimes as women we tend to get stuck because we're in this societal expectation of this is how it's supposed to be, and this is, and we're not,
Right.
like, again, kind of going back to like what is meant to be versus what I'm trying to cultivate, right? Like
Mm.
sometimes like the direction that I thought it was going to go, that's not really where it's supposed to go. It's actually supposed to go over here, and that's really scary. But in like schooling, right, I
Right.
really didn't think it was, but it's been a really great blessing for us. Granted, there's still things that are not always 100%, but there's nothing 100% in anything, right? But I've been really
Right.
blessed with my friendships. Like my oldest friend Maria, her and I have been friends since we were 9. And you and I have been friends since our early 20s. And in both instances, I you both have been in my life longer than you've not been in my life at this point, right?
Right.
And I think I've been very fortunate to have that. And I've had other friends that have come and gone. And I think because I'm so willing to know that there's chapters to your life, right? Like
Right.
your life is not a sprint. And I wouldn't even say it's a marathon, because a marathon like has a finish, right? It's like this
Yeah.
epic novel journey, right? You're on this like
Yeah.
quest, and every time you get to this point in a quest where you think that's it, there's something else, right? There's the next level of
Yeah.
the quest. And I think that's really what it is. And how you cultivate those friendships for me personally is that vulnerability piece, is that space where not only are you talking to me about what's going on in your life, but you're also showing me, hey, this is a solution that I want to make for my life, or I don't know the solution right now, I need your support. And then you don't just stay stuck in that problem. Like, how do we
Yeah.
continue to dig you out of that moment? And I think that's for
Yeah.
me where my friendships have come from.
Well, I love what you're explaining because it makes sense, right? All the things, all the ways. But what I can appreciate about you in this realm of sisterhood is we met in life where you kind of run through friends, right? In your 20s, you run through friends. It's like freaking candy. You pick the flavor of the week and you're going out and you're really
Yeah.
connecting. You're like, oh my gosh, girl, I love you so much. And then you go through the phases of marriage and then the phases of children. But I want to say, I think for me, what is unique about you in terms of cultivating these vulnerable spaces, because a lot of women hear that they're like, absolutely, you need to be vulnerable with each other and open, but how do you do that is when you were going through really hard times and then I was going through really hard times and then our little small friend group were going through really hard times, you were so adamant that we spend one night together where we just come, no children, we don't even plan a menu, we just decide what we want to eat. And it was really something you enforced in our friendship, to have to sit with each other for hours on end, and whether we were going to
Yeah.
talk about something personal or not was what you were bringing to the table. But after the fifth time you're in that environment, because I don't know, we keep saying yes, right? You break down at some point and you realize this person's not going to stop trying to get close, trying to get, well, because I think that's another piece that sisterhood or the sister wound does is we spend shallow time, not
Mm,
quality time, right? There's
yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
shallowness in women relationships. And I
Yeah.
think that in midlife, we're experiencing so much deep emotional awakening. And then you're going through the hard shit, anyways. I mean, it's either implosion or somebody. And I think you were so good at that. You were made sure. Like, even when we're like, no, I don't think we can make this day, you're like, okay, pick another day. And until we picked the day, you were relentless about it. You were like, okay, this month. This is the day. These are the 3 days. And it's funny because even when we're like not responding immediately, hey, what's going on? Are you coming? I think that it sounds sort of forced, but you almost have to. Vulnerability is not easy. And when we
Yeah.
say we can't make it, it's 99% of the time, it's an excuse to not have to be like, oh, I got to sit with these women that I've known forever and talk about stuff I don't want to talk about because it's hard shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that you really went out of your way to make sure that we did that, even though none of us were at the same phases in life or the same stages in life or the same anything. And we got to a point where, yes, wine was our friend, obviously, but it got to the point where we were looking forward to it. Like,
Yeah, and
okay,
then we got to tea. And then we matured and now we just drink tea.
but
But I
I
think,
think that's a thing.
yeah, and I think, you said something too. People are they throw around the word like I love you so easily. I love you. Like, do you? Do you really? Do you really know what that means? Like, you have to be just as much as you have to be careful with the word hate, like, you have to be very careful with the word love because some people take that in different ways. And so when I say it to someone, I'm saying it from the place of what it means to me for someone to love me and how I'm going to give that love to you. Because I wouldn't want to say it to somebody and then not give them the love that I would want from somebody else. And so I'm very mindful and very careful about who I say that to and who I say I care about because I think that's another one, right? And so with my friendships, like you said, those shallow, in your 20s, oh my God, I love you, girl. Like you're the best, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you were the best in that moment. You were that energy I thought I needed in that moment because I didn't really know who I was
Yeah.
or I wasn't comfortable. I was still trying to figure and to be perfectly honest, here I am mid 40s. I still don't know who I am. I'm still figuring out every day like who I am. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, there's a new piece of me or I think the biggest thing right now is I'm unlearning everything I thought I was, and I'm
Mm,
really not who I thought I was,
yeah.
if that makes
That's
sense.
a really good one for my next question because I feel like one of the things that I really want to bring to light in this podcast is the stigmas and the taboos we don't talk about as women. And part of that is just generational conditioning, right? And as we're seeing, there's a global shift in the world. There's a lot of like division going on. So what is a thing? What is a taboo that you knew about in midlife that you were like, oh my gosh, I did not think this was real? Like, for instance, for me, menopause, I always assumed it was just hot flashes, crazy. Yeah, right. Going to be crazy, and you're not going to have your period. Those are the three main factors of menopause that I learned growing up. That's what to look forward to. My God, it is not even close to that. I don't even have those three things going for me, and I'm still going through menopause. So,
Yeah.
okay, maybe just the two out of the three, because I still think crazy is,
I think that's always been us, though. It's just like the
yeah.
baseline.
Yeah, so I think one of the taboos that I'm experiencing, and the other thing that I remember is okay, you're going to go through night sweats, your libido is going to be completely done, over with, and you're going to be crazy. And, okay, wrong. My libido is actually 10 times worse than when I was in my 20s. I'm like, what is this new thing? Right.
Yeah.
So that's a taboo I just want to smash right there in the open. And who knows? Maybe I'll get the night sweats. I mean, who knows if that'll
We still
happen? But
have time.
right. But those are the
Don't cut
taboos
it
that I
out.
didn't, no one talked about. No one said, like, you
Yeah.
still want to be a sexual being. You still want to be sensual and alert. Like, I just assumed menopause meant, ugh, you're done. It's time.
Yeah, I think the taboo for me was that like kind of that you're done, right? You weren't this sexual being anymore. You weren't desired, you weren't desirable. Whereas I feel like now I'm more desired than I was in my 20s. And that could just be like confidence or more comfortable with who I am, versus when I was 20. You're 20, you don't know anything. Like, you think you know. Like, I thought I knew. I thought I was like, oh, I know everything. I know shit, okay? I did not know anything. I think that's a big thing, now as far as like women. I feel like now more than anything is like, it's more of a like, wow, look at her. She's got this energy and whereas I thought at 40, once I started going through menopause, it'd be like, nope, nobody wants you, and you're gonna be this old hag, and
Right. And slow and
it's
the whole
slow, and
thing.
where it's like, I might be slow, but nobody notices.
Okay, but let's be for real though. Now that you are, well, I would consider you perimenopause based on my
Yeah.
information. But what is an experience that you go through emotionally, physically, or mentally where you're like, this is not what I signed up for? Like, what is
The
this? What has that experience been for you?
the hormonal spiral for me, like, all of a
Mm.
sudden that's come back. I used to get really bad in my 20s, like really bad hormonal drops before I would get my period. But now I feel like it's coming out worse. And then like my boobs hurt so bad. Like, it feels like when I was pregnant. I'm like, I am
Mm.
not pregnant, but they hurt so bad. And I'm like, why is this happening? And this is dumb. I don't and breakouts. Like, why am I breaking out like I'm a teenager? Like, it's horrible, right? Like, those are the things I know. The hormonal spiral, that was really scary for me like a couple months ago. And I've had like two of them since. But because I had that first one, I've been able to like self-talk and, keep saying, this, nope, that's not what it is. And I think you know this about me. Like, I'm very big on my own self-talk, like how I talk to myself. And, I'm very much like very aware. It might take me a minute, but usually I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Okay,
Right.
I'll go do this. But I think that's been the biggest one because I was like, I could see why so many women in this age group have higher rates of suicide because that was dark.
Was it
I mean,
triggered by something
no,
or okay.
I don't, not that I know of. Like, all of a sudden I was just like, do, do, do. And all of a sudden it was just like, everybody hates you. Your friends hate you. Like, I remember
Mm.
literally it was like, Wonderful Maria hate you. They hate you. Your kids
Like you
hate
believed
you.
it.
Like, like it was in my head, like everybody, and I started having all this anxiety and all this like crazy. And it was like, everybody is against you. You have failed. Everybody hates you. And I was just like, but the stronger part of me was like, why? What did I do? Like, I'm like going back, like, what did I do? I haven't talked to them, and like, are they mad because I haven't talked to them? And I'm like, no, that's like normal. We don't talk every day. Like, and so that, I had to, and then I was like trying to call everybody because I was like, okay, I need someone to just like reassure me in this moment, and nobody was answering. So I was like, oh my god, everybody does.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now.
It was terrible. And then what was interesting is one of my friends, he called, or like I called, and I was like, hey, and normally he wouldn't answer, during the time of day that I called. Usually he's really busy. And so the fact that he answered, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody hates you. Like, you're totally fine. No? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe you should seek some professional.
Okay, first of all, okay, guy. But that's so true. Okay, I'm just going to confess something right now. I can't believe I'm doing it on air, but I get really that I didn't know that that's what it was until you just mentioned this like deep emotional abyss of where it's almost really tough to crawl out of is
Yeah.
when I leave my grandkids. When I leave my grandkids, you
Mm,
know what happens in my head? That I am like gonna die in the next 24 hours. Like I really believe it. I get super sad. I'm like, what are they gonna do without me? What if I die? Like it goes morbid to such a degree
yeah.
where it really eats me up inside of this my mortality rate goes from like, oh, I'm gonna live to be 87 years old to be like, in 3 hours, you're gonna be done.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that it had a lot to do with that. I mean, because I feel like there's so many other things that are happening when it comes to
Yeah.
phones, but until I heard you describe it, that's really what it is. It's like
Mhm,
this
mhm.
very strong pull
Yeah.
towards it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it makes emotional sense in that moment
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Which is why I think a lot of women in this age group have the highest rate of suicide.
Yeah.
Because if you are not aware, you are gonna be like, you will start to believe these things. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh," and I'm
And
like,
plus we
"No, this
weren't
isn't
answering the
real."
phone.
Right, and nobody was answering the phone, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and, I've lost, friends to suicide, that have been in this state, and I think back
Mhm.
on it and I'm like, "Wow," that that probably played a big part of it,
Mhm.
and, it's like hindsight's always 2020, but really what could you have done? And I think,
Right.
as we are entering this midlife, we are seeing that there is not enough information about what it means to enter this midlife. There's not enough
Right.
scientific information on what menopause is. A lot of the doctors are just like, well, here's a pill and good luck. And nope, that's just what it's going to be. But it's really not. And I think it even starts with when we start having our periods because our hormones get really messed up during that time too. And there's not enough information studied about women specifically. Like
Right.
most of our medical foundation is based off of a male's genetic, a male's body, and then they've just shifted it to fit for a woman.
Right.
And so
Right.
there's
Because we
not
have sort of the same
same
anatomy,
thing.
sorta.
Right. Sorta,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, yeah, okay, but there needs to be studies done on women's hormones, and you can't just throw antidepressants at things when you there might be more to that.
Right.
And
Listen,
and
wine
so
companies, there ain't enough
yeah,
wine.
no, there's not. And so I think that's gonna be a big thing, like, I think women now our age, we're
Yeah.
really starting to stand in our womanhood and saying, "No more. We need this research. We need to know what
Right.
this means. We need to share this openly and honestly with our girlfriends. We need to not be ashamed." And I think, you know, like you and I specifically, I know that we speak to this younger generation and we're willing to share those experiences, like
Yeah.
just for everybody's own context, like I'm very close with Wonderful's middle daughter, and we share a lot of things, back and forth as well about motherhood because we happen to be, even though she's a lot younger than me, um, we have children in the same age group. And so
Yeah.
we've not only have I watched her grow up and I've been in different phases in her life, like I've been so honored and blessed to be in these different chapters in her life that we can share a lot of these stories. So, as much as Wonderful and I have shared and Wonderful shared her experiences, I'm able to then share those my experiences with her
Right.
daughter. And I
Yeah.
think that's been really great. And I think if you can cultivate those relationships with these younger generations and share that, I think that's going to be the biggest piece of moving more awareness for us going
Yeah.
forward.
I agree. I 100% agree because knowing what I know now, definitely none of it came from my mom, right?
Yeah.
And my mom's been gone for almost 20 years now,
Mhm.
but I highly doubt even if she was alive, she'd still be talking to me, that she would talk to me about it. It just wasn't her generation to have
Yeah.
those kinds of conversations. So now let's move on to the space that we're really in, which is called the reinvention phase, right? So here you
Yeah.
are, you're raising three kids on your own. You are out there dating potentially. I'm not putting anything out there, people. I'm just saying
Sorry,
it's
I
a
also
thing
have
when you're
kids, so I have a
single.
cold.
And you're having to reignite a career that you put on hold for many, many years, right? So, how would you describe your reinvention journey currently? Like in terms of when you said earlier, you do know who you are better than when you were in your 20s, but you don't know who you're becoming. And then when you started looking for a job, how did you just pick? Like, I think I'm going to do this. I mean, we don't have the same luxuries as we did in our 20s where
Yeah.
we could just, oh, I'm going to work here and see if I like it. You have three mouths
Yeah.
to feed and yourself and bills to
Yeah.
pay.
Yeah. That's a hard question because I went on a whole like deep spiral the other day of life and figuring out who it is. Like I right now I'm in between and trying to figure out what that next place is for me. And a lot of it, because I did put my career on hold for a really long time. I didn't work for almost 11 years. I was at home with my kids. And not that I wasn't like working. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And I
Yeah.
was volunteering for things. Picking what I want to do next has been challenging because what I was doing before when I had my kids, I wasn't happy doing. I was just doing it because, again, immigrant parents, graduate, get a job. I didn't love it. I could do it, but I didn't love it. At this place in my life, yes, I need to feed my children, but I also need to feed my soul. And so I'm also considering, what does that mean to feed my soul in order to also feed my children? So a lot of it, like I said, is like finding places where I can advocate for people and being in positions where I think I can best do that is what I'm looking for right now. And what exactly that is, I don't know yet. I'm on that journey, and I have a lot of really great people in my corner that know how passionate I am, how capable I am, how organized I am. And so I feel like this is the right path and the right journey, but I'm also trying to be very open-minded that, just because this is what I think it is, doesn't mean that that's what the universe has in store for me. So I the one thing I have learned is that I don't want to change who I am to fit an environment anymore.
That's a good one.
Because, I was having a conversation with one of my friends the other day. I reached out to her to ask her advice about how to like job search, and she said something. She goes, "You know what? If it's meant for you, it's going to be for you." She's like, "You should not have to shrink yourself down or make yourself fit into any environment anymore." She's like, "Because if you have to do that, it's not for you. That is not the place for you. That is not where you want to grow. That is not where you want to be, because it's not going to let you grow. It's going to keep you in a little box." And I was like, "You're so right." Like, I need to remember, if I'm getting a rejection, it wasn't meant for me. That wasn't a place that was going to allow me to grow. And so it's scary because, the reality of like, I still got bills, and I got 3 boys that think food and money grow on trees. Well, I mean, food does in my backyard, but yeah. So,
Well, and I think you have this extra element in your life that I want to share, is that our generation of women and our generation in general are also dealing with this other piece of taking care of our elderly parents,
other
right?
people,
We care. So, of your siblings, you're the one now in that responsibility role. So I know my audience understands. Like, it seems like a lot. She's a single mom with 3 kids, trying to find how to have a career that feeds her soul, but also needs to pay bills. So if she has to get a job, she has to get a job. And she's caring for her elderly parents in her home. Like, this is not new for our generation. There's a lot of mothers and women and daughters that are doing this. But again, we really only talk about, look how strong I am. I can do this. This is what I'm made for,
yeah,
which I totally understand. We are capable of so many things, but we're not really having that conversation of how hard it is for us to still maintain. How do you continue to say to yourself, I want to feed my soul. I want to, but I love
diviners.
my parent. I love my children. So how do you balance, and do you do it like how they do in Atomic Habits, where segment moments out, like, in this 15 moment, I'm going to think about myself. In that 15 I mean, does that really work, or what are you doing?
No, I think because I'm in such chaos, I'm like, I have to feed my soul. Like,
Mm,
I have to do this, because if everything else is chaotic, I need this one piece to not be. I think it's really interesting too, because one person's chaos is somebody else's like field of grass,
mm,
right? Like,
right.
me running my kids around to all their activities and getting them to all their stuff doesn't feel chaotic to me. It flows very naturally for me. I'm just like, okay, we gotta go here, we gotta be here, we gotta do this. This is where you're gonna be. This is what it is. The chaos for me is my dad living in my house and not having a moment of to myself. Like, not a single moment. Like, my kids go away and they spend time with their dad, and before, it was like, "Okay, I had a quiet house. I didn't have to think about anybody else, no matter how I moved, it didn't affect anybody," right?
Mhm.
And even if I, like, stay in my room, like, I know my dad is there, right? And I feel
Right.
obligated to interact, right? Even though he's not asking me
Right.
to, you just
Right.
it's like that little fly that's, like, buzzing around and you just, like, you know it's there and you're like, "Oh, okay, it's there." It's never just quiet, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, I need to find those moments of quiet. Like, I think COVID, like us being in quarantine for me really taught me that I wasn't as extroverted as I thought I was,
Oh my God, that's so funny.
right? Because I used to be out all the time. But really, I I was out because of my ex, really liked to be out. He liked to be social. And I went along because I was like, I want to spend time with him. And I thought that's what we were
Yeah.
supposed to do. And even with my kids, it was like, oh, I had to like go get them out and do all these things. And COVID made me realize I don't have to do any of that stuff. I can socialize with who I want to, when I want to. And really, I need my time to recharge. And I'm not an
Mm,
introvert. I'm not an introvert at all. I know that. But I'm
right.
definitely an ambivert. Like, I can be extroverted, I can be out and this, but I need my moments of like just me recharging. And so that, I think, is why I need to find something that feeds my soul, because I don't have those moments and I'm like, I need that. Oh, that felt really good. And
Yeah.
I feel happy about this. And like, I don't have, even when I have 15 minutes, sometimes like the person that I'm dating right now he's like, it blows my mind that you starve yourself. And I'm like, it's not that I starve myself, okay? It's that I get so busy, I forget. And he's like, I never forget to eat. Like, my day will be, and I'll make people wait on me. And I'm like, I'll just be like, "Oh, I got this thing real quick. I'll just one more thing real quick, real quick." And I don't. And yeah. So what I have been doing is in the morning, I wake up like a half hour before I actually need to be awake so that I can just sit and allow
Mm,
myself to slowly move into the day. I found
yeah.
that that's how I need to start my day. Like, if I miss my alarm clock and I'm rushing, I'm like, it sets the tone for the whole day, and it sucks. Like,
Right.
I'm getting home from practice and I'm like, kids are like wanting their second dinner and they got a shower and it's like 10:30 by the time I'm like in bed and I'm winding down. It's like 11 and my alarm clock's going off at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And it but I'm like, I have to do it because if I don't, I'm
Yeah.
and that's not how everybody me. I was never a morning person. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's part of our bonding is
Yeah.
I'm not a morning person either.
And here I am, 5 a.m. Great, love this for me. So I can get time to myself. Because if
Yeah.
I don't get it any other time of the day. It's just the rat race starting.
Yeah, that's funny you say that because I've been practicing this thing in the morning also.
Mm,
I call it my shut the fuck up mornings where I just for my goal is at least an hour. And it's not
mm,
no one else can talk to me. I just can't be in planning mode. I'm a
mm,
task person. I like to write things down, goal oriented. I just not need to do that for at least the first 30 minutes of the day,
mm,
right? And that really sets me up. Um, so with now the ever evolving world that you live in, right? I mean, we could talk forever, people. That's why we're just gonna keep having these conversations. I'm gonna
mm.
call them
Yep.
girlfriend sesh because we're gonna come back for more good stuff. But one of my
And then I
last
won't have a
questions
cold
I've
next time.
so one of the okay, I don't know if I should ask this one. Well, because what I
Ask
really want
it.
to ask is this in this midlife phase, there's a lot of single women
Mm,
in because we've awoken to the whole like wait what am I doing, why am I
yeah.
in this relate how has dating like when you first like after divorce you spent some time really like kind of dealing with those emotional attachments to that, how did you know like I know a couple single women, that we know a few single women, and the only thing available out there is these apps. And, now we're in our 40s and in our 50s, which, come on, we're from the generation where we didn't need cell phones to find each other, right?
No. Yeah.
So, how has that been for you? And what would be your advice? Because now you just said you're dating, right? What would be your advice to other women out there who are in our midlives single? I mean, I'm not, but
Girl,
I'm just saying.
I don't know. Those apps are a nightmare. There's a lot of not genuine people. I think, okay, I will say this. You have to work on yourself. That's the bottom line
Mm,
because you reflect what you need, quote
mm,
unquote. Not, I guess not what
right.
you need. You reflect what you're going to get, right? Like, and if you
Yeah.
are chaotic in your own life, you're going to get chaotic people. The apps are garbage. They're terrible. But I mean, there's some people that have met genuinely great people. And I think, again, because they've done the work on themselves. So they know exactly what they will and will not tolerate and what they do and they do not
Mm,
want. And I think, for me, I tried the apps again. It was a nightmare. It was fun. It was fun for like, when I was like first like, oh, I'm out, I'm single. And then that's what I got. I got the out and single people, right? Like, and that was fine in that moment, but it
right.
like that's not what was gonna sustain. And the person that I'm dating now was a complete accident. That was unexpected.
Oh, was it though?
Honest,
See,
it's so funny. It's so funny because he says, I'm like, I honestly, and I had no intention. Like, I thought, "Oh, this person's really cool, like, they'll be really fun to talk to." And again, you know, this comes back to me and, like, not really knowing that people would find me attractive or desire me, like, I was always and to give kind of listeners backstory, like, I was really close with Wonderful's husband, just like he was like the bro. Like we traveled, he was my coach and we traveled and we stayed in hotel rooms together very platonically, by the way. And I remember texting her like your husband's disgusting. This is gross, like he's throwing socks everywhere and I'm like grossed out and like but I was always the girl with the guys, but not
yeah,
interested in those guys. Like I was just like, "Hey,
right,
you're cool, you're chill, you hang out," because I was kind of a tomboy. And so
right.
when I met him, I was on that same mindset of this is just going to be a fun person to hang out with and
Yeah, like another bro.
yeah, another bro. And I was just like, "Yeah, this is cool." And then it went into what it is now and it's been
Well,
great and
do you think that blossomed? Because I think one of the things that I'm experiencing, I've always been on more a feminine streak in terms of my exterior look, but I have a very strong masculine energy. I think that's what was also another bonding moment between us. But do you think that your femininity took a like different turn that allowed you to see more of that, or do you feel like it was you that was getting to the point of like, I want to be more feminine about this relationship or moving into this space? Or was it really a blindside?
initially it was really a blindside. I did not know that it would um be I definitely didn't know it would be where it is today. Definitely didn't think it would be where it was then. And I think because he allowed me space to step into my femininity, right? Like
Oh, that's good.
he creates it so that I don't have to play masculine roles. And
That's so good.
he's very he's very good at like little things. Like I'll be carrying like, I'm just like so used to carrying all the bags and doing all the things and he'll just like grab it. Like he won't ask. He just grabs it. And it's like those small little things that you're just like they seem insignificant, but they make a huge difference, especially for a woman, because we're so used to carrying and doing it all. And
Yeah.
I remember one time, he's really been giving me space to when he's at work, like to utilize his house because he knows I don't have that quiet space. And he goes, "You can stay here today, but don't do any chores." He goes, "If you do any chores,
So he forces you to
he
really just
yeah,
be with
be
yourself.
be with myself. And he was like, don't do any chores. He's like, I will be really mad if you do chores. Cause like I'll be like, oh, I'll just like wipe this real quick, or oh, let me just wash this pot real quick, and I was just like,
Yeah.
okay. And it was really hard because I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just like right there. And I'm just like, I just want to clean it real quick. And I was like, okay, nope. He said no chores. And he came home and I was like, I didn't do any chores. He's like, good. What did you do? You just relaxed? And I was like, yeah, I worked on some stuff. He's like, okay. I took a nap. He's like, good. That's what you should do. And
Yeah.
so I think that was the biggest like piece where it's allowed me to have
Mhm.
that kind of that femininity, like step into that femininity per se.
Yeah.
I guess. And so like, no, I did not think, honestly, I did not think that it was going to be that. And when it did, it turned out to be really great. And it's been healing, not only for myself, but I think also for him because he was going through something too. And we've just given each other that space to really communicate and heal.
Yeah. I love how you're describing it. I mean, it seems that that's all we are all looking for, that version, right? Like I feel like who
Yeah.
my husband is today definitely was not the same person, which I'm like, my gosh, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
being much more aware and attentive to who I am and who I am becoming. I love that. But I think I love how you answered it though, because even though that's a lot of single women out there in their midlife that's probably going through some sort of chaos emotionally, is like just wants to be able to share their life with somebody. It's really about knowing you first, like really working
Yeah.
on you. Cause I think that's the best answer. There is no answer of like, well, ask these questions when you go on a date, or,
No,
go to
no.
this restaurant or order this food. I think those days of tactical research are over because it
Yeah.
really has to always come down to us, who we
Yep.
are and what we want truly. Right.
Yep.
I remember when
Yep.
that was such a hard question to ask, like, what do you want? Wonderful. I'm like, shit, I don't know. First of all, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. And
Yeah.
secondly, I don't know what I want. So,
I think,
um,
like the other part is you have to be in a relationship with yourself because at the end of the
yeah,
day, you're the only one that's going to be there through the end. So
yeah,
you have to be happy with yourself. And I think that's the other thing too. We always are like looking for that person to make us
right,
happy. They don't exist. The person that's going to make you happy is you. And then
right,
you find people that will add to your happiness. Like Brene
right.
Brown said something about a candle where she was like, you got to find your flame igniters and your flame blower outers. Like your flame blower outers are
Mm,
not the people that are for you because they're going to constantly fan your flame and blow it out. Versus like your igniters are the people that help you grow your flame brighter and stronger.
yeah,
That I think for me in my relationship is he doesn't make me happy. He adds to my happy moments and allows me to stay in my happiness. And even when I'm feeling not so great, he's not adding to the not so great. He's trying
yeah,
to bring me back into that space. And same with my kids, it's like they don't make me happy. Like
mhm,
those kids drive me crazy. I love them to death. They don't make me happy but they add to my happiness.
yeah.
And I
That's
think
good.
that's a big piece is that you have to find you and your happiness. And then you can
Mhm,
answer, what do you want? Well, I want someone that does this. I want
right.
because you'll go on all these dating apps and you'll go on these dates and you're gonna get exactly who you are
Yeah,
out of your partner. And you don't really like that part of you. And but you're gonna be with this person? No, that's not gonna
yeah.
work. This is gonna be
Well,
chaos.
yeah, I think the thing that I loved about your experience in this dating world is, we have a group text. I know all of you ladies out there are group text with your girlfriends, and she'll send us a message that goes, "Oh my gosh, is this normal in a relationship where he brought me food when I didn't ask him?" And I was like, "Who have you been married to?" But not anything against, because I feel like there's just some people like that. There are just some
Yeah.
people who don't think about anybody else or whatever, right? And so I think subconsciously, because you've been that for us in friendships where
Yeah.
you think about us, you know, before we ask or anything. And the more that you became fall in love with yourself, the more you attracted that version. But I remember you would be so shocked. You'd be like, wait, is
Yeah.
this normal? And I was like, huh?
Yeah, it was
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, it's super normal.
Like the bar was set super low and he's just like he's setting the bar way too high. So if we ever like split, then that means there's someone coming with like a super high bar.
And it's funny because in our little group text, you always have one, which is me, that's just like, wait, where have you been? Yes, absolutely. And then you have Maria who's just like, yes, yes, girl. It's always fun to see how relationships unfold for all of us. And but what it sounds like for me is midlife is really knowing ourselves, right? So, my last question for you is you're walking down the street, you walk into a cafe, and you see 25-year-old Lisa.
I turn around and run away. I don't want to mess
And
her
you're
up.
and you're super compelled to tell her something, but you have to tell her something that she will actually freaking listen to. You can't just be like, "Hey girl, what's up?" What would you say to that 24-year-old knowing what you know now, right? And you see her and knowing who you were at 25, what would you say that she would actually listen to?
Okay, so I watch all the Back to the Futures and I watch all the Marvel movies. I can't talk to my self because then I won't be who I am today.
My God, yeah, let's just pretend none of those rules work. Like that you can.
I would just say, like, there's always gonna be the bright light at the end of the dark tunnel. Like, no matter what, like you have hard days, but you have great days too. And your track record is survival, like always. And you're gonna get to the point where you thrive and keep trucking because that light's coming. Yep. And that's what I would say. And then I would run away because I don't want to mess up
That's
the timeline. I don't
I
want to mess
always
up
think if I ran into my 25-year-old self and I could, geez, my hair, I could tell her something, I'd be like, September 25th, 2001, do not go into the I think I would like give her specific dates and a specific time and be like, and do not wear those shoes.
No, you can't. You
I would
can't.
totally listen to myself if
No,
I
I
heard.
know, but then you wouldn't be who you are today.
True, but I'm just, I feel like that's such a question most people ask is like, what would you tell your younger self? And I'm like, I know there's a lot of things my younger self would be like, "Psst, yeah, get
Yeah.
out of here with that. I'm not listening.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm like, don't wear the shoes on this day, I would listen.
Don't
I'd be
wear
like,
don't
uh-huh.
don't take your shoes on and off at your 40th birthday party because you're gonna get a giant blister on your toe
Oh my God, totally. I'd be like, for Lisa's 40th birthday, wear practical shoes and you will last all night.
all night. Yeah. All these girls are wearing tennis shoes in the club now. We used to be going in stilettos. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
This was a super fun girlfriend sesh, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you shared your thoughts and where you're at in your life and what midlife means to you and dating and all of the things. Because I think it's really important, like I said in the beginning, wait. I got to go back to that beginning question. What is your song? What's your midlife song? Now
Oh
we've
my
had this
gosh.
conversation. It's sort of,
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Kelly Clarkson.
my God, one of the best concerts we went to.
Yeah, that's right. God, we poached those seats up way up close too. That was so fun.
So fun. Oh, that's a good one. That is a really, really, I thought you were going to say Kanye.
Kanye.
Yeah.
No, no. I love Kelly Clarkson though. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but she's so underrated. But her
So
journey,
under,
I feel like her journey and my journey have been very similar, especially like her divorce stuff too. And we were kind of going through it through the same time. And I've always
yeah.
like really related to her. And she's like so like, I just need to be me. Like I'm not gonna be what Hollywood expects me to be.
Yeah.
I'm just being me. And genuinely she just like I feel like she would be a super cool friend. Like so Kelly, if you ever watch
100%.
this podcast, like, join our girl group. You'll have a
You're
great time.
listening, Kelly.
Join our girl group. You'll have a great time.
That's right. That's a great song and a great way to end. And maybe we'll throw that song in as we're ending this podcast. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing and thank you being vulnerable. I mean, I am rated top 5%. So there's a lot of people listening and you
Yeah.
just shared all kinds of juicy details about your life. So I think that is what is the need out there in the world.
Yeah.
And us women need to keep having these conversations with each other. And we will continue to have these girlfriend sesh. Who knows?
Mhm.
We might bring Lisa back to come share with us her
Like she said, for us to get real, like she says it's juicy, but I feel like there's some even more juicier stuff. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you know what? Okay, if we're going Christmas theme song, let's go Kelly Clarkson. Christmas isn't canceled, just you.
I'm so sick of that word canceled, honest to God. Like I'm
I know,
it's like
I
enough
know,
already. Got it.
I know.
Nailed it.
But that's a good one too, because she talks about like, how she's gonna keep being happy, and she was like she found out that she could be happy even without you.
Yeah.
So nothing's getting
I feel like she's a better version after her divorce.
for sure, for sure.
Like
And
she
I think me
is the
too.
Kelly Clarkson.
I think I'm a better version too.
For
So
sure. For
yeah,
sure. I agree with that. And not to say that she was, shitty during her marriage
yeah,
or anything like that,
no,
but like, because, in our 20s, we just didn't know anything. And then you were married. And now you're like, yeah, wear
yeah.
practical shoes on the 40th birthday party, please. Because,
Right.
we
Did we
froze.
just freeze? Yeah, we
Yeah,
froze.
we just froze, but that's okay. We'll edit that
It's
out.
okay.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us. And
Having me.
if this episode was great fun for you to listen to and had added value to your life, please share it with your friends, share it with your team, share it with, I mean, come on, just share it with anybody and everybody. And don't forget to leave us a review. Only nice things. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, as my mother would say. So thank you again. And until our next girlfriend sesh, love you so much. And I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being with me on today's journey. If you felt something resonate, if you saw yourself in this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe. Share it with a friend who needs this space and leave a review. It helps others find us, and it's a small way you can be a part of this powerful movement. Ladies, this isn't just a podcast. It's a community, a revolution, a place where midlife women come together to embrace our hard-earned wisdom and vibrant truth. So thank you for being part of this. Remember, it's time. It's time to step into our truth. No more holding back. Midlife is ours to own, and it's only getting started. So until next time, take a breath, honor your journey, and live with audacity, courage, and joy. This is our time, our truth, unraveled, revealed, and celebrated.